Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be talking about why I do not want the X-Men and the world of the X-Men to appear in the MCU. I mean, of course, outside of that lackluster teaser in the Marvels and the appearances from Deadpool and Wolverine that already happened. First things first, though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I post film, book, and TV series reviews. I do opinion pieces on entertainment, news, and affairs. I'm also an author of adult and young adult mystery novels. I recently released a new short mystery called The Intruder. There's a link to it in my video description below, and I encourage you to check it out as well. With that in mind, and without further ado, I'm going to just jump right into it. I might as well start by clarifying that when I say that I don't want X-Men and their world in the MCU, I mean that I don't want them in the MCU as it stands now. I remember when the MCU was first getting started with the masterpiece that was Iron Man, I could not wait for the day when Tony Stark eventually ran across the likes of Magneto or had to pit his genius against other such mutants. When Captain America the Winter Soldier came out with this little teaser for Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the post-credit scene, I practically fell out of my seat screaming, "Oh boy, this is it! It's happening! It's finally happening!" Yeah, that was almost 11 years ago, and it's been about 6 years since I've had anything resembling that level of enthusiasm for any MCU project. The MCU is right now in the place of Batman from The Dark Knight Rises when Bane tells him, "Peace has cost you your strength, victory has defeated you." And I'm sure that's the only comparison I'll be making between the MCU and genre-defining movies like the Nolan Batman movies for probably ever. But it works in this case. The runaway success of the Infinity Saga caused Disney Marvel to grow so full of itself that it forgot the lessons it employed to create that success. Namely, hire good writers and directors with a strong vision and respect for the source material, adapt the best and most beloved stories from the source material, cast actors who can inhabit their roles, keep the budgets reasonable, and above all else, entertain versus preach. And Disney Marvel's forgetting those lessons has caused the brand to, in 5 short years, become an audience, if not critical, laughingstock that is losing money faster than a drunken gambler across streaming, television, and film platforms. There is no sense of vision at Disney Marvel right now besides using Marvel characters to promote the political left while preaching down to both political moderates and the political right. The company avoids hiring good writers and directors like Ebola. Major casting decisions are made more so on the basis of social media visibility and general name recognition than, whether actors can actually inhabit the characters whom they're hired to portray. When the powers that be even do acknowledge the source material, they choose to adapt stories from it solely based on how ripe those stories are for translation into ham-fisted socio-political sermons disguised as entertainment. Generally, and I'm just going to say this, and the Shields can disagree with me for speaking this truth if they want to, Kevin Feige has been in charge for too long and of too much. He had a solid 10-year plan for MCU films culminating in Avengers Endgame, and no one can take that away from him. But once it was over, a successor should have been installed who'd been part of the MCU from the start, who understood the brand and loved its source material, and who had an equally sharp creative vision for the next 10 years. Kevin should not have been immediately given responsibility for television, streaming, and film. It was a recipe for disaster, and that's exactly what's been cooking ever since. How does all that tie in with why I don't want the X-Men in the MCU? Well, if it wasn't already obvious, I'll break it down even further. Disney acquired the rights to X-Men and Fantastic Four content in 2019, right when the MCU was at the peak of its success and about a year before it all started to go downhill with those problems that I just discussed. As a result, we're now going to get a horribly miscast Fantastic Four movie whose actors are all 10 years older than they should be, whose story, which is by most reports a tragic misfire, is set in some weird alternate 1960s dimension not connected to the MCU, and whose Doctor Doom is little more than a cash-grabbing gimmick installed by Disney Marvel as a desperate last-ditch attempt to drum up support from a largely apathetic audience. And with all that in mind, I do not want the MCU to introduce X-Men on top of it all, because I don't want the MCU to defile X-Men like it has with just about everything else it's touched since Avengers Endgame. I've got too much respect for the X-Men, and have since I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. X-Men the Animated Series, X-Men Evolution, and Wolverine and the X-Men are amongst my favorite animated shows, and I love the comic book material. The real stuff, I mean, of decades past, not the more recent cut-rate runs featuring non-existent storytelling, mutant rights as a poor allegory for alphabet community rights, and all male protagonists as problems to be solved versus characters to be written. I do not want Disney Marvel to destroy the X-Men as a brand, and I've got a sinking feeling that the company is gearing up to do it. You've got executives over there saying that it should be called X-Women instead of X-Men. You've got rumors that they want to focus on an all or predominantly female cast. Rumors that Professor X and Magneto will be race swapped for literally no reason besides buzz. Rumors that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who's more so an internet star than actor or box office draw, is being eyed to play Apocalypse. Rumors that Disney wants to cast actors for X-Men films based more on their social media following than whether they're actually good fits for the characters, etc. And I understand that much of this is probably not completely accurate, but there's often at least a kernel of truth at the heart of most rumors, and that's enough to make me confident and satisfied that I do not want the X-Men in the MCU as it currently stands. And again, before the shields start up with their comebacks about how Disney Marvel must know how to do X-Men because the studio did Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm just going to head it off here by reminding everyone that Deadpool and Wolverine was not a pure Disney Marvel project so much as a collaboration between Disney Marvel and Ryan Reynolds' own private company, which did most of the grunt work in developing the film's story, hiring its talent, and generally executing its vision. And really, if you insist on going there, I'm prepared to argue that Deadpool and Wolverine wasn't even that great a movie in the first place. It was not a bad movie, but basically like with Spider-Man No Way Home, it got by largely on using nostalgia baiting in the form of reinstalling legacy characters played by legacy actors to prop up a story that was decent and that serviced the fans, but that was not spectacular or even all that sensible. That only works for so long before the actors age out of their roles, before the audience starts to want true substance again, before the studio must actually make a good movie if it wants to retain crowd investment. Disney Marvel seems incapable of doing that right now. It has already destroyed the MCU. It looks primed to destroy Fantastic Four next, and that's why I don't want it to touch X-Men. Not now, and probably not until the company's entire registry of decision makers has been replaced by people who are prepared to treat the IP with the respect that it deserves. And I know that probably nothing I say will ever stop the company, Disney Marvel, from pressing ahead with this latest dumpster fire in the making. But as a fan of the source material and the previous superior adaptations, I can still express my opinion, and I can still hope. But as always, that's just my opinion. Like I just said, time for you to share yours. Sound off in the comments below to tell me what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Are your feelings more complex? Meanwhile, if you like this video and made it this far, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, ring that bell, and hey, follow me on social media as well. So long.